Hey everyone, welcome to Pie's Kitchen. So for the upcoming holiday season, I wanted to give you an edible gift recipe, something you can make for family and friends. And I thought, you know what, let's do a cookie recipe. Those are always appreciated. But what should I share? And I thought I have to share with you my chocolate chip cookie recipe because yes, I know it's a classic. Yes, I know lots of people make it, but this is by far the best chocolate chip cookie recipe that I've ever made. And trust me, I've made chocolate chip cookies in my life many times. So when you bring this for people, they're going to be surprised how good this pretty basic recipe is, but there are lots of tips here and there that I would like to share. This original recipe actually came from a memoir of a local bakery owner. She wrote a memoir about her life and included a chocolate chip cookie recipe, and I tried it and it was amazing. So I will link to that book in the website post as well if you are interested. All right, let's get started. So let's mix the dry ingredients first. I've got here just some all-purpose flour, and to that I'm gonna add some salt, and some baking powder and baking soda. So you don't need to sift the flour, but one thing I do like to sift is baking soda, especially if you've got some old baking soda that you're using, because sometimes they get little clumps in it. And if that clump doesn't get mixed in during the mixing process, you can taste a chunk of baking soda, and that's happened to me before. So just to avoid it, I like to sift it along with my baking powder. See, those little clumps is what I'm talking about. And fresh baking soda doesn't get as much, but older ones. And then I'm gonna give this a nice whisk. And that's it for the dry. We'll let that sit for now. So I'm using my stand mixer here, which makes it easy. But if you only have the handheld electric mixer, that'll work too. I'll include more details on how to work with those in the written recipe, okay? So I've got some unsalted butter that's gonna go in, and it's been sitting at room temperature. That's what you want. You don't wanna work with hard, cold butter here. I'm just gonna give it, I'm using the paddle attachment, and I'm just gonna give it a quick stir. My butter is pretty soft, but sometimes your butter is like kind of soft, but not really. The initial stir really helps it soften fully. Okay. And then I'm gonna add some sugar. So I have two types of sugar here, some dark brown sugar and regular white sugar. And by the way, I should mention that I have adapted this recipe from the original version a little bit, so it's not quite exactly the same. Mix that on medium speed until it's nice and fluffy. Looks fluffy, the color should lighten a little bit. And we're gonna stop it halfway to scrape down the sides. And scrape down the paddle too, that's important. Make sure you dig all the way to the bottom, because I find, at least with this particular mixer, the very bottom of the bowl doesn't actually get mixed. So, you know what's good for this? A mini spatula. There we go. Really get into those holes there. Okay, that looks good to me. The color is a little lighter, it's looking a little fluffy, and this stage is important because you are aerating the mixture, and that's gonna, get some air bubbles in the cookies. It'll give it rise. It'll also dissolve some of the sugar as well. Well, I guess I don't have to do this. I don't know why I do this right now, because it's out of habit. So in addition to this, I'm going to add some vanilla extract. And 2 eggs. Whee. Oh, and the egg should also be at room temperature. And then I'm gonna just mix this on low to begin with so I don't get egg splash everywhere. Once it's mixed a little, you definitely need to scrape this, because as you can see, the sides are not getting mixed in. Again, make sure you dig to the bottom. Now I'm just gonna mix on medium-low just to incorporate everything together. There you go, that's it. The dry ingredients will go in. And we're almost done, look how easy this is. But with the dry ingredients, I'm gonna, this bowl is way too big. So unwieldy. I'm gonna add just a little bit at a time. If I add all of this in and then I turn the machine on, it's just gonna kick up flour all over the place. It will still kick up a little bit of flour, but a little at a time kicks it up less. So give that a quick whiz, turn that off, add a little more flour. And I turn it off in between adds just because I don't want to over mix this dough, so I want to mix it as little as possible. And my last addition. What you could do as well is just drape like a kitchen towel over, so when it does kick it up, you don't end up breathing it in. One more push out here, and then I'm gonna mix it just until, okay, and that's it. It's not well mixed yet, but I still need to add my chocolate chips, and by the time the chocolate chips gets mixed in, it'll be well mixed. If you well mix it now, you add the chocolate chips, you mix it again, then you end up over mixing, right? And again, with this particular mixer, I don't know, with yours might be a little different. I always like to go and scrape the bottom because I can see that the bottom actually has quite a bit of dry flour that just wasn't gonna get mixed in. Okay, chocolate chips. This is the most important part. Yeah, I guess it's a very important part, is the type of chocolate chips that I am using. So instead of using chocolate chips, I'm using chocolate discs, okay? So these are semi-sweet. The original recipe calls for a semi-sweet mixed with milk chocolate, but I don't like milk chocolate in my cookies. But the disc, what these will do is when they melt, they become layers because they're so flat, right? So you get these like beautiful chocolate layers on the cookie. You get intense chocolate flavor in every bite. It makes such a difference that these are in layers and not in like little chunks throughout. Trust me. It's a little hard to find, so I would encourage you to go to like a specialty store, like a gourmet kitchen store that maybe have specialty baking ingredients, but this makes a big difference, okay? Trust me. Just gonna pour that all in, and I've actually reduced the amount of chocolate called for in the original recipe because I thought it was too much, because there are two camps of people. People who think there's no such thing as chocolate chip cookies with too much chocolate, and there are people who think that they also like to taste the cookie itself, not just the chocolate. So this is definitely something you can customize if you want more chocolate, less chocolate, super low speed, just a few times to get the chocolate mixed in. Whoop, that's it. The dough is done. Yeah, look at that. Now, I'm not gonna scrape too much of this paddle because that cookie dough is really delicious, and one of the things that's hard about this recipe is stopping yourself from eating that delicious dough, although there's raw eggs in here and I'm pregnant, so I probably shouldn't eat too much of this. So this is all for Adam, the cameraman. So now I'm going to portion out this cookie dough, but not onto a baking sheet because we are not going to bake it yet. We're going to portion it out, and then it's going to age in the fridge for 48 hours. Yes, I said it. We are aging cookie dough. I was very skeptical of this method in the beginning. I was like, come on, what difference could that make? So I tested it. I bake one right away. I bake one day age, and I bake one 2-day age. And the result was significantly better at 2 days. The flavors are just a little more intense. Everything seems almost a little more caramelly. It's just a more flavorful cookie overall. So if you can, plan ahead, age it for 2 days, and all you do is just let it sit in the fridge. That's all you do. And you will have something much more flavorful than if you were to bake it right away, okay? If you bake it right away, it'll be fine, but it's not gonna be epic until you age it, okay? So as far as scooping, I am using a number 30 scoop, which is 1 fluid ounce. It's equivalent of about 2 tablespoons. If you don't have one of these, you can just use 2 spoons and just get the balls about 2 inches in diameter. That's it. And I'm not doing like a flat scoop, like it is a little bit rounded. That's the size that I like. And for our Patreon members, for the show after the show, I'm going to talk you through some common cookie troubleshooting, so some common problems that occur with cookies and how to work around them. And if you want to know more about Patreon, the link is in the description below. You can check that out. And I like to make sure that at the bottom of the scoop there isn't exposed chocolate, because what's going to happen with this exposed chocolate is that it will melt when you bake it, and when you take it off, it'll stick to the pan, so you lose that chocolate to the pan. A little bit is okay, but if you see exposed chocolate, just push some dough over it to protect it. So it's been 2 days. No, it hasn't been 2 days. I was so organized that I made another batch that's been properly aged for you. My oven is preheated, and I'm going to give you 2 options. If you like cookies that spread a little wider, sort of thinner, more crisp, you bake it at 350 for 15 minutes. If you like cookies that are a little bit thicker, it'll still get crispy on the outside and it browns a little bit more, but it's gonna be a little thicker. Bake it at 375 for 11 minutes. Definitely try it out with your own oven, just to see what you like. I've got a sheet pan lined with either parchment paper or a non-stick silicone pad like this, and you can only put safely 6 cookies on it. If you're good, maybe you can get 8, but any more than that I've tried and they blend into each other once they spread. But I would recommend baking just 6 first, just to see how it goes. Check with your temperature and time just to see that that's exactly how you want it. So if there are changes that need to be made for the second batch, you can do that. Look at that. Now, here's a tip. If you want cookies that's got like chocolate right on top, make sure you nudge a piece of chocolate to put it on top of the dough, and then it'll bake into that, because otherwise chocolate gets hidden. Nothing wrong with that, but this looks a little better. So now this has to cool for at least 5 to 10 minutes, because right now it's very soft, so you don't want to transfer it now. This is actually the first time I'm using Adam's oven to bake it, so I had to adjust the timing a little bit, and that's going to be true for you. Everybody's oven's a little bit different, so that's why it's good to bake up sort of a test batch of a few pieces so you can make the necessary adjustment without having baked like 25 cookies. All right, so these cookies have cooled enough for me to eat, but they're still fresh and the chocolate's still melty, which is exactly when you want to serve it. You want to serve it the day of, if possible, because the chocolate's still going to be melty. And yes, you can reheat it and freeze the dough. I will include all of those instructions in the written recipe. So I'm going to grab this guy here. And as you can see, there's a little bit of chocolate stuck to the pan. This is what I was talking about making sure you cover the bottom of the dough. Inevitably, you still might get a little bit of chocolate lost to the pan, but if you don't, you sometimes lose a whole piece of chocolate to the bottom, so you want to avoid that. So let me break this cookie up for you. Oh, I love it. It's crispy on the edges, but chewy in the middle. Look at that. Ah, so good. This is the most exciting part of my day. So good. You can hear the crispy edges, still chewy in the middle. There is nothing like it. And the 2 days aging is totally worth it. So I hope you give this a try. The recipe, as always, will be on paiskitchen.com. And definitely send me a photo if you make it on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Let me know who you share this cookie with and what they think. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, make sure you do so you don't miss a recipe. And click the little bell icon as well so you get a notification when I post a new video. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time for your next delicious adventure.